afternoon, everybody. My name is Silvana Masella. I'm the CEO of StandICT and the technical coordinator of StandICT 2026 and 2023, because they're both in parallel. So we will be starting quite shortly. Today's Walk and Talk webinar is on the digital product passport, making informed choices and protecting brands. So we do have some great numbers today. So we're going to just do a bit of housekeeping whilst we wait to gather all our wonderful participants and our fantastic speakers for a Friday afternoon super DPP Walk and Talk. How are we all feeling? Psyched. Okay, now we can get started. So I've said who I am, many of you know who I am. Those of you who don't, you can see that we are StandICT and Compla for StandICT. Our financial coordinator is DCU, Ray Walsh. Many of you know him, who works extremely hard together with Lindsay Frost as series editors behind the technical working groups. We also have Open Forum Europe, Digital SME Alliance, Australo and Fraunhofer as project partners too. Moving on, if I can. So today we're pleased to have the following distribution of participants, as you can see here. And in fact, that number 171 is actually 185 who came in, who registered today. So we didn't even have time to actually update the slide. And we're quite pleased also with the representation between males and females, with 27 countries represented. So a few housekeeping for you. The event will be recorded, which it normally is, and it's available within 24 hours. We do encourage you to put in any questions in the dedicated Q&A. I love coming on webinars or workshops online and seeing a flurry of comments, points in the chat. And I really do think it's becoming the norm, and it's quite sad when I never see any in there. So I'm sure you all have loads to say, so please say it. The chat will also be collected, obviously, and this helps us then get back to individuals, especially as we can't give the floor to everybody in a webinar like this, okay? So moving to our expert speakers, you will see that I'll give a few insights and updates on StandICT. We then have Ilias Yakovidis, advisor from European Commission DG Connect. We then have our chair of our technical working group, TWG DPP, that will be an acronym you'll hear today, Jens Geico, thank you very much. Suzanne Guth-Orlowski, CI and Solution Officer at Sferity, Thomas Röding, Entrepreneur Digital Strategist at Naravero, Francesca Poggiali, Chief Public Policy Officer, Europe GS1. We don't know whether she might have some difficulty coming to us. We hope not. And then we finalize our webinar with Benjamin Helfritz, Head of Quality Transformation at DIN. So welcome and thank you very much for your time this Friday afternoon. We have gone through a series of different walk and talks, and we're proud as StandICT in having connected the technical working groups with then a corresponding webinar or workshop. And these are just a snapshot of some of the previous webinars that we put together that we wanted to share with you. Zooming in on the purpose of today's webinar, we've said it's the work carried out by the Landscape of Digital Product Passport Standards. And I'd like to give a shout out to Thomas Reiber, Emilio Davila, Carlos Rodriguez Lopez from DG Connect, and Ilias Yakovidis and Michele Galatola, who actually pushed for the need for this and said, can StandICT do something to support it? And it was great. From a small conversation, it then turned into something practical with clearly the experts on the call here now that are going to describe this. So it's wonderful to put things into practice and showing that when people are enthusiastic and wanting something to get done, you can actually do this. In the standards that are in our YOS of StandICT, what you see, they've been updated. There are 186 that have come in and a further 78 that have been pushed into the DPP now. And what this means is that the database of standards that we're collecting in the YOS are completely updated with whoever's then working, the experts on these technical working groups. The report is available for download now. You're going to hear more about it now, so clearly I won't say any more. This is a snapshot of all the other landscape reports that have now been produced and are available on Zenodo. And you can see some pretty impressive numbers and downloads, okay? So this is exactly the type of thing we want to keep doing in the coming weeks and months, especially over the next 36 months. And together with the Commission, what we want to make sure is that we are relevant. So any technical working group that's then pushed forward, that we might not have even mentioned in our grant agreement of StandICT, we are agile enough to then change our mandate to suit clearly requirements, what's going on in Europe and in the market today. And I think that's a very good thing that we have this flexibility that clearly maybe others don't. A quick snapshot, remember StandICT provides European experts funding, okay, to ICT standardization topics for all SDOs across the board, so global SDOs. Here you see the full amount of the 9 calls under StandICT 2023, so not 26. So we had 2.9 million that this has gone out now over the 3 years, and we finish in August 2023. You can see here the targeted topics. I mentioned earlier that they are all closely connected to the ICT rolling plan standardization topics. And there's some information on clearly which are the applicants that are feeding into the various SDOs and the affiliation type as well. I mentioned that the open calls are evaluated by external experts. I think this is something that StandICT is one of its strengths. It is extremely neutral and transparent. We have nothing as a consortium partners to do with the evaluation criteria or deciding which applicants come in or don't. And there is an open call and it closes on the 31st of May. If you know of some super experts who would like to do this, then please tell them to apply. As I said, the 9 open calls, you saw the statistics. Here we have our first open call for StandICT 2026. It comes out on the 9th of May. So this is the opening. And as you can see, we are highlighting to the applicant that we'd like to welcome applications tackling the metaverse and digital product passport specifically. Clearly, all of the other topics are there, but we do want to see many applications coming in on here. I mentioned the YOS Observatory, where the list of standards are going from the technical working groups, and this is what it looks like. So, but I won't go into details, but I do want to show this because we want to hear from you and you can join the discussion. And under each of the technical working group topics, you can go in and actually have your say. So please do consider that. And I shall stop there. If you're not following us, please do on our LinkedIn and Twitter channels. And with that, enjoy the rest of the webinar. And I thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and call our first speaker, who is Ilias Yakovidis, from advisor to the European Commission. So the floor is yours, Ilias. Thank you very much. We can see your slides. They're perfect. Over to you.
Thank you. So it's difficult to carry the energy you just put in. So I'll try. First of all, I wanted to say big thanks to you, Silvana, to you, Susanne, Jens as a leader of the pack, Benjamin and Thomas. You exceeded our expectations. So congratulations. The work that you have done is excellent. Okay. And I will finish with that as well. So I just wanted to say it up front so it's very clear. I am one of the 4 now, actually, digital product passport, and I will use the acronym, the 3-letter acronyms that people hate. You know, it's the DPP for short, the DPP Musketeers. So I know that maybe one of the other ones is online, William Neal. We have Michele that you already mentioned, And there is a newcomer, the D'Artagnan of the three of us, Wojtek, who just joined the DG Environment team and will be working with us. Special thanks to Carlos, Emilio, and Thomas to actually tell me that you exist and you responding so much to our need. That was excellent job. In a short time, you jumped on the wagon and delivered excellent results. So what I will do before Jens and the team tell you what exactly has happened in this work, I'll try to give you the background. And on that background, I will diverge a little bit from your subtitle that you presented. It's not only about giving information and informed choices. For me, it's more about the B2B, to make the sustainable product cheaper. One thing that we know from other domains like healthcare, just giving people information, sticking pictures on the cigarette box or sticking labels on the alcohol, giving them informed kind of special information about how bad it is maybe for their health or how bad it is for green, doesn't really make the big difference. We need to make sure that the industry changes their business models and we ensure that sustainability becomes mainstream and cheaper than alternatives. So this is the ultimate kind of holy grail I want to mention before I go actually to the slides. So first of all, there's one thing that is not so clear in our narratives about climate change, and that is what is one of...
Ilias,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Thank you. But we have your grey box, unfortunately. Bottom right, yes. So what disappeared when we had it back? Okay. It's still there. Shall we move? I'm going to get Francesco to present. Shall I do that?
Is it now better?
Still there.
Still there, okay. What about now? No?
Still there.
Still there.
I don't, yeah.
Maybe if Francesco displays, it's fine with me.
He can. Okay. If you stop sharing, Ilias, and
okay.
then Francesco will push that out.
Okay.
Now you can already continue. Yes. Perfect.
So what I wanted to say is that one overlooked narrative from the mainstream that we normally see in the media, in political discourses, is that what is the main driver of the climate change? And one of the main drivers is actually the non-circularity of our economy. Even if we are on renewables tomorrow, if 100% of everything is renewables, we are not done with the biodiversity challenge, which is as important as climate change. We are not done with the sustainability and the limited natural resource that we have to manage with, us and the future generations. So how do we decouple our, whatever we call tomorrow, sustainable prosperity or green growth, whatever the title of that is? It's still a big challenge. So digitalization is basically the major force that we need to deploy to make sure that we can move from quantity-driven business models. More money I make, more natural resources I sell in whatever shape of a car, shape of a mobile phone, shape of a furniture, shape of whatever. If we can actually move to address social needs, and that's a mobility, shelter, food, tourism, leisure, with less materials, but not compromising on the well-being and the quality of our life. So that is the hard part, and that's where digital is really powerful. So moving, next slide. Moving to what we call circular economy. But circular economy is all about cooperation and information exchange beyond any levels we have had before. So it's like cooperation, information exchange 4.0 or beyond. We already know industry is trying to do it and is doing it, but we need to really do it also, not only for economic reasons, but also for sustainability reasons. And those cycles that you see in front of you is really where the information can make a difference about knowing where material comes from, relying on the information and these secondary materials. If recyclers can communicate what is coming up and what they can deliver to the market as recycled material, to repair our things instead of throwing them away and buying new. So it's really powerful cycles that needs to be supported by IT or sharing IT. Next. We as a Commission, we have done many legislations. I mean, European Green Deal is like a mother of all legislations. It's delivering legislation every month, at least one. The relevant ones for circular economy are listed in front of you. And the top one is the one that actually introduced this new kid on the block that excites so many different stakeholders, from industry to, to governments, to SMEs, all over the sectors of economy, and the NGOs and professional organizations. And that's the Digital Product Passport, the DPP, as I said. We are working on that. We are working on what exactly can be done. And that's where we called for help StandICT to actually give us a landscape of what are the standards that we're talking about here when we want to exchange information. The other ones that are also very relevant is that if this information will be carried with respect to sustainability, we actually need to know what are the legislative requests and what is the framework for actually giving that information to authorities, to consumers, to other parties that actually may have a legitimate role in getting this information. Now we have the green claims, so that is sustainability that will be captured. You can actually claim, and it'll be really hard for companies now to get to the new framework that if they want to show that they are green, it'll not be so easy just to throw kind of confusing labels all over the place, how sustainable or blue or green they are. So it is regulated now how and when you can actually call something green and sustainable. And of course, the new things that came out just last month is the reparability. So actually we will regulate that there will have to be reparability built in by design and legislatively guaranteed. So those are kind of examples. There are many others, but I just highlighted those four. Behind those directives, there are people in the Commission. If anybody you want to ask what is happening with that, there's whole teams working behind that. And of course, most of that is still in the co-legislative discussion. So Council and Parliament are looking at it and they're doing their own amendments at the moment. Next. So the Digital Product Passport that was introduced last year, for us, it's actually what we would like to see is something that would deliver benefits, but it's not a mean. It's not a goal, it's a mean to a goal. And the biggest goal, and that's where I want to repeat again, compared to the subtitles or many other people thinking that Digital Product Passport is really for consumers. Yes, it's for one of those stakeholders that we want to address is consumers and giving them trusted and correct information. But it's not the only one. For me personally, I think the biggest power is to enable B2B to become more sustainable and to move to the sustainable business models. And of course, it's for the authorities to do their job easier. But more than anything, remember that is for B2B to change their models so we can arrive to sustainable products that actually make sense and are cheaper than alternatives. Next. Now, how it's going to work. So now, if you are in the IT business, you will understand that we cannot anymore do what we used to do for the last 30 years. We cannot launch a centralized database in the basement of the Commission where we ask all the stakeholders, economic stakeholders, to send us information about the products that we host centrally in some database. We have done that in the past. We have done that in several other domains, including electronics, the April. But this is beyond any size that we have dealt with before. So we're calling for a decentralized approach where this Digital Product Passport will be at the websites of the manufacturers that are introducing these products on the market or the importers. And if they can actually get their value chain to host it for them, so it will be even decentralized from that point of view, but it cannot be in a central database. So it will be decentralized. It would have to be closed by default and only open to those stakeholders that can authenticate and identify themselves as having a legitimate right to see things. So it'll be something like electronic patient records where only doctors can see, or whoever has been agreed to see that data. So it will not be open by default, all the information, because the trade secrets and innovations that B2B wants to keep to themselves should be protected. Now, there will be a way to enter that space. That would be normally data carriers, and one type of identifications that you will see colleagues after me will discuss more in detail. We will actually need to regulate what are the allowable carriers and identification standards so that we ensure the so-called DPP system. That's the next slide. So the design is that there will be a horizontal digital product passport system where for all product categories, we will have to make the same choices when it comes to authentication of stakeholders, the right access right management, the storage, and you see it on your left hand side. So those are the issues that we will need to standardize across all product categories. And then each product category, in something that is called secondary legislation, in a delegated act, each product category will discuss what information they actually want to capture about textile or electronics or furniture or chemicals. And they will, as stakeholders, decide what will be the data, under which standard it will be represented. But the system that will handle those product data will have to be standardized. And that's where we ask the help of StandICT to tell us what are the existing standards that can standardize that. Next slide, please. Those 8 categories that you see in front of you. It's a 7, but actually we will see, it's 8. We will issue now standardization requests. So the work of StandICT is the background. It's kind of the basis on which we are now writing standardization requests that will ask as European Standards Organization to issue the so-called harmonized standards that will give presumption of conformity to the essential requirements on digital product passport that are mentioned in articles 9, 10, and 11 of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation. So I'm giving you a lot of details. For those of you that understand what I'm saying, fine, so you can see exactly which articles I'm talking about. For the others that look at the bigger picture, we need to standardize. We need to give the specs to the market out there, because we want to avoid that there are 1,000 different DPPs that do not talk to each other. So we need to standardize, let's say the middleware, the horizontal part, before we start launching each product category's passport, to make sure that there is the cross-industry coherence and information exchange. So this is what we're very thankful to StandICT and the colleagues that will speak later on for making that collection and landscaping possible. Next. Now, what are we talking in terms of timing? We hope that we have agreement of the co-legislations next year. So before we actually dissolve the parliament next year, they will agree on the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation and the digital product passport as a concept, as horizontal system. And then we launch the product-specific delegated acts, or implementing as a secondary legislation, where we go category per category, several categories per year, designing exactly what is the data in digital product passport for each category, and then give 1-2 years to the market to adapt to that. Personally, I see that many SMEs will not be able to maybe host all that DPP data if they are putting a product on the market, but we hope that there will be a healthy, vibrant, and competitive marketplace of the data intermediaries, or some kind of companies that will provide digital product passport as a service. And we hope that these services will be cheap, will be consistent, and enable everybody, every economic stakeholder, to participate in this endeavor. Thank you very much again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elias, for that overview and insights. I wanted to just touch upon, it's not a question, it's more of a comment, and there's perhaps an agreement from you. In your slide of the standardization request on the basis for future harmonized standards, would it be fair to suggest then that the applications that come in from call 1 May onwards, if we've got some of this terminology from your 8 new areas, would be, already a very good start, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect.
We will,
so that's
I mean, the standard will be finalized in June, so you will be a little bit before that. But one thing I didn't mention is on the 11th of May, we will have an information day of the digital product passport pilot that will be supported by Digital Europe program.
Okay.
So we are moving from what we know as CIRPAS, the coordination and support action, which is basically collection of what is happening in the world today, to large-scale demonstration. So we will put up 6 million, which is just the 50% of pilot that we expect to be submitted. One pilot that would have to be a total amount of 12 million, where we pay the 50% of that, to demonstrate in at least 2 product categories this system plus 2 product passport based on the standards that you have provided. So we will give them the StandICT document as the standards to be picked up before we actually finalize them.
Got it. Okay, that's clear, Elias. There are a couple of questions that I'm not going to pick up on now. Maybe Elias and other speakers can have a look whilst I pass the floor. And I thank you very much, Elias, again for that overview. Jens Jaco, the floor is yours now. Jens, as I said to you all at the beginning, Jens was our very active chair of the technical working group. And I think half of the success, most of the success in when these documents get out is because you have a very driven person and group of experts who push this through. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So thank you very much. And Jens, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Silvana, but I have to forward also this thank to Benjamin, who co-chaired the group together with me, and of course to the whole team. So in the next minutes, I will explain a little bit from the viewpoint of our technical working group on digital product passport, so which is called here TWG. And as Ilya said, we have a lot of acronyms, but basically we all hate them. As Elias explained before, I put it in a slightly different point. The timeline from the regulation is that we have this eco-design for sustainable product regulation, or ESPR called, which was launched last year in March. And from that, we have the commenting, of course, via the parliament, via the council, and via the different associations, and even down to citizens in Europe. And then there is this so-called trilogue negotiation between the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament. Hopefully, they will come to a consensus, and then we can adopt the ESPR, as Elias explained before. And then, as discussed already in autumn last year, the Commission approached you, the StandICT team, and said we need a kind of landscaping report, an overview on what is existing on standards for the DPP, and that was the one activity. Now, and also the plan is to have a so-called standardization request. Therefore, our working group was issued. So, as mentioned, on the one hand, we have the regulatory action. Then we expect to have a standardization request somewhere in June, Elias just explained. But before that, our working group was active to have to prepare the landscaping report. And also in parallel, the project CIRPAS was mentioned. This is a coordination and support action. A project started 1st of October last year and running until March next year, and this is a project going parallel. So this is basically how these areas play together. So we have regulation, we have the actual standardization going on at the standards developing organizations. We have StandICT project as a kind of support unit of standardization. On the one hand, in terms of the landscaping reports, but also, as we learned, we will have very soon the next call for applications. So also the experts will be supported by StandICT.eu. And we have the coordination and support action, the project SIRPAS to support the activity. The working group, technical working group for the digital product passport was initiated in September last year, and we finalized our work in March this year. As typically 80% of the work was done in the first 3 months, and then it took us another 3 months for the last 20%, but that's a typical time frame. Here you can see the team which contributed to this report. A very enthusiastic team, I have to say, a lot of very open discussion, a lot of energy in the team, and we are very lucky that almost half of the team is here available today and to support me to present the activities of our report of our group. And as already mentioned, European Commission supported us very much in this activity. Coming to the actual report, as you already mentioned, it's available for download, and I was very pleased to see that really a significant number of downloads already to count. We have a short foreword and then giving an introduction, including a description of 7 areas of standardization for DPP we identified. So this is very similar to the categories Ilias explained before. It's not identically, but very similar, and I'm pretty sure we will close this gap later on. And also Susanne will go deeper into detail on these categories or these areas and explain it in architecture figure. And as you, Silvana, already mentioned in the introduction, we have about 250 standards in total identified, and we separated these into the standards from the so-called recognized standardization bodies according to a EU directive called 1025 from year 2012. This is a European directive giving the 3 European standardization organizations, CENELEC and ETSI, a special role when it comes to so-called harmonized standards, which can have a status to be have a so-called presumption of conformity in fulfilling the essential requirements of a regulation. Sounds very complicated, but the idea is, I think it is really a great idea. We have this system this year since 30 years. And the idea is that the Commission describes really the essential requirements, so to give the political targets, what is aimed with the regulation, but the technical details, how to realize it, how to implement and how to achieve these requirements is described in technical standards. And for example, we have such a system since several decades, for example, for machinery, but also for electrical devices. And for electrical devices, basically the directive says technically you should have protection against electric shock, against heat, and against fire hazards from your electrical device. But how to achieve this is described in technical standards from the European standardization organizations. So therefore, we explicitly mentioned these standards, but also we added another 78 standards from other standards developing organizations. I'm not familiar with all of the StandICT landscaping reports, but the one I've seen closer, they do not have to distinguish between these 2 categories, but that's also because of other landscaping reports. They are not relevant for upcoming EU regulation or have not been so far, so therefore this was not relevant. So there is a small difference to other reports. So if you are compare it to the other reports. Another one is that we also made a very first assessment of the relevance of the standards we identified according to the 7 areas we described above. So this is really a first shot. We said if we can't judge it within 1 minute, then we leave it open. But we have a kind of, let's say, swarm knowledge in the group, and we use this and provided the information whether identified standard is relevant to one of the categories or not, or if it is highly relevant, and so on. And this information, I think, is also very useful for the further procedures. Coming back to this picture, we see that our report is really in the center. That's of course how StandICT should be. And now we use the result. As Ilias mentioned, the Commission uses this result as input to draft the standardization request. Also, the European standardization organizations will use this report as input to answer the standardization request, to see what is existing, what is missing, and what are the gaps. And also I can say that the EU project SIRPAS uses this result as an input, and then to further go into detail and use it for their reports and recommendations. And with that, I'm finished with my part to give you an overview of the working group and the report. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jens. Very, very concise and understandable. I do have a question for you, but to save on time, Jens, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'd like you to go into the chat, and I'd like you to write to all the participants on how they can contribute to standardization and to the SIRPAS initiative. Okay, so if you can write that directly, and then all the participants can have that answer in black and white. And with that, thank you very much once again. I'm going to go to our 4th speaker this afternoon, and that's Suzanne Guth-Orlowski. So Suzanne, whilst you then put up your slide deck, I remind you she's the Chief Innovation Solution Officer at Sperity. And the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Suzanne, can you hear us? You might be mute. Just wait a second to see if we get Suzanne back.
Okay, I'm here.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
And
That's
now you just need the slides back, right?
That's good. And I'd like to thank all of you participants who are feverishly writing, and we're trying to respond. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. Now I think you can hear me and see the slides, right?
Perfect.
So to give you a bit of an idea of where we come from, because maybe not everyone knows Sperity and what we do. We're expert on decentralized identity, decentralized technology in general, and we see the decentralized, focus here in this DPP project, but we also see it in a lot of other projects, which I would shortly wanted to introduce, which is, for example, in the US, where there's already a supply chain, a solution for supply chain acts in the market and productive. Then there is a European Digital Identity Wallet initiative where we participate, concentrate on enterprise identity based on decentralized identities. Then there is a project Trace4EU, where we look at the traceability on product and material tracing, also with the same technology basis. We work with MuddyTrace. MuddyTrace is especially interesting also for the digital product passport, because it looks after the identity for critical raw materials tracing, and the ESG compliance as well in that area. And the decentralized approach is also used in the Energy and Mines digital trust ecosystem by the British Columbia government. It's really nice to also look at what they do, because they, for example, give out mining licenses, due diligence licenses, registration licenses, and all greenhouse gas reports out as, verifiable credentials to their mines in British Columbia, which actually, can help us to see how we can do that here with the digital product passport in a similar way. In the ID Union project, we are also part of the 10.5 working group looking after product identity. And I saw that Florine was already mentioning and pointing to the paper that we've written together there that looks at product identity based on decentralized identity. Please have a look. It's very, very close to, what we can do here in the product passport area as well. And obviously, the GAIA-X Federation services that we're implementing partner of is something that you could also look at for finding open source and reference implementation to maybe get part of the system. So in the context of that, looking at the digital product passport and looking at our report, we were trying to give the reader a bit of more information around those 7 categories. I'm still looking for the 8th category, which I haven't found. What Elias was mentioning, maybe he can clarify that later on. But we were basically trying to, find the architecture picture where all these 7 categories belong. And I would like to introduce you shortly to those because we looked for standards in those 7 categories. So first of all, we have the data carriers, which obviously carry the identifier of the product, and you have different categories here, different possibilities. You can take a QR code, you can take an RFID chip, or the like, and look up the identifier on the web. Also, you have different possibilities there to find actually the digital product passport in the end. Then obviously, to identify products properly, but also suppliers, the economic operator, to establish trust, unique identifiers, first of all, for the product, but maybe also for the economic operator, for example, who issues is, or the suppliers that he's working with. Of course, the product passport information has business critical data in it, so you don't want to make it public to everyone. You need access control mechanisms to the digital product passport, which are also available manifold. Yeah? So we've collected the access rights management technologies that we thought were adoptable for the digital product passport solution. Everything that you see in a rectangle, those are semantic standards. So first of all, we need a description of the digital product passport, the battery passport, the battery pass project. The German one has done a great job in issuing the guideline already for what those attributes should be. Congratulations again to the colleagues from that project. But there's also a lot of other information that is maybe needed for the product passport. So recycled material, or description of a license, of ESG criteria, of the calculation method, maybe of the CO2 footprint. So there's a lot of semantics, vocabularies that are needed to express the full range of the digital product passport. So we are also collecting those to fill all the different data sheets that you maybe collect from the supply chain and put it into the product passport. Now, the next category is data processing. So obviously, you already start with connection protocols by, picking up the digital product passport from somewhere, accessing a system where it is stored. That's kind of one way, but also you might want to link from the digital product passport to other information in the system. You maybe have to issue information to the economic operator as a supplier. So there's also a lot of data processing happening between companies. That's what I guess Elias referred to as, the business to business communication that also needs to happen there. And we identified the protocols that we thought would be eligible to fill that category. We also have this decentralized storage or data persistence. There we didn't, I think, find too many standards around those. And then we also have another category what was kind of technically a bit overlapping with the access rights management category, which is data authentication, reliability, integrity, making sure that the product passport that you see is actually from the source that you think it's from, and that it has not been tampered with, changed, modified, and so forth. So those are basically the different areas that we identified. Hopefully I could explain also the diagram a little bit that you see and find in the report. So if you would ask me what you can do and what you can't do with a report, first of all, what you can do, as I said, you find a collection of standards to implement a DPP in your industry, in your product segment, to meet those different standard areas that the European Commission has given us. And you understand the categories where a standards mandate will come up and where technical standards are needed. What you can't do is use it as a best practice to see how to implement a DPP and the standards for it, or to be compliant to the ESPR regulation. We're not there yet. We're a few steps before that. You can also not see really how the different standards relate to each other. So you see, this is in that area, this is in that area, but you don't know if I can use that standard with the other standard and then build a system out of it. So that piece is missing. So obviously what's needed in future is a guideline, which standards maybe to use in which ecosystem or which industry and so forth, and how relate them to each other. Because we are coming from the decentralized background, we have added some extra work from our side to give you an idea how you can use the decentralized standards mentioned in the report. And it's something that we issued yesterday to make sure that you have something to read from today onwards for the nice long weekend. You can simply scan the QR code and end up at the article. And in this article, we show how with decentralized identifiers, you can give out the identities to products and companies, how to issue data for digital product passport, how to create a data carrier, how to find the digital product passport, on the web using the data carrier, how to verify the data, and what the benefits of the decentralized approach was or is, that Elias was mentioning, referring always to the standards that you find in the landscape report. So what we try to already fill a little bit of the gap, how one standard relates to another, and already give a little bit extra to the initiative that we had here within ICT. The benefits that I wanted to come back to, that also Elias was mentioning, and I saw there were comments in the chat. What are the extra benefits for the companies if we implement the DPP other than just being compliant to the regulation? Well, I've been on the Hannover Fair last week, and apart from talking to digital product passport, I talked to people and they were saying, how can we get in trusted data into our system from other parties? And so, well, the decentralized technology that we can also use for the product passport is a means for that. Also, you can do so if I want to get data from other companies into my database. I usually have to sign a contract with them. I set up a technical connection with them. I exchange key material, and then I exchange some data, and it takes a long time usually. With the decentralized approach, what you can do is ad hoc trusted data exchange. It also makes central components obsolete, and I think that's also what Elias was mentioning. It allows us to be more slim in those solutions here, because for central systems, you need to set up a company, you need to build technology, you need to deploy and manage it, and have to handle the ongoing costs. So the decentralized approach will make the entire system slim, and there's already obviously applications going on around the ecosystem of GaiaX Federation Services. Also, Catena-X is targeting a decentralized approach.
Suzanne, thank you. Okay, you have one final minute if you want to go to your... Perfect.
That's fine. I can do that in one last minute. So the benefit again is that the information stays with the owner, and the owner has full control over the data. The data is always up to date because you don't share it with any central platforms or share it multiple times. the entry barriers needs to be low. If this digital product passport wants to be successful, we need to build on open standards and use maybe even open source technology as being provided by the GAIA-X Federation services. And the technology needs to be inclusive and permissionless. Yeah, the internet wasn't so successful because you know you had to sign up, or I don't know, have a big technical hurdle. Everyone with an internet connection and a browser or web server can actually participate, and that's kind of the idea that I think we need for the digital product passport to become successful. And yeah, potentially the approach is also capable to find compliance, to show compliance regards to the Supply Chain Act, the EU Directive on Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence, Critical Raw Material Acts, and the lately announced Green Claims initiatives, and what Elias had mentioned before. So hopefully, you know, we can find a common basis to build this together in the next years. Looking forward to it. If you want to get in touch, yeah, you can scan this QR code and get in touch.
Very good. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for your presentation. I would like to ask all speakers indeed to go to the Q&A and have a look if there are any questions that you can specifically respond to from our active participants. Whilst doing that, I'm going to pass the floor already to Thomas Röding, who's an entrepreneur, digitalist and strategist at Narandero. Thomas, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Ivana, thank you very much. I will just try to share my screen and then take you to a little bit of a different view, just not in terms of contradictory, but more like there were lots of technical details. And so my role is today to take you to the perspective of companies and even consumers as a preview or maybe an outlook, not a promising that is exactly happening like this, but giving you an idea what all these technologies could actually lead to. So we have brought in an example. This example kind of like is the other side of the curtain. What happens if all of these digital product passport technologies would be finally agreed on and they would be in place? What could a future look like? And what would be, from a, let's say, corporate point of view, a benefit? And how would maybe a B2C perspective as well as a B2B perspective contribute to make it really happen that digital product passports will make life easier in order to have them kind of like talking about their provenance, as well as a biography that changes over time if a product is actually in use, helping people to use it the best way and keep it around as long as possible. So kind of like supporting not only maintenance and repair, but also giving advice on how to take care of it the best way and how to keep products alive and around. And if at some point in time, there might be the need for refurbishing or repairs or all these recapabilities, all of these aspects shall be part of what is accessible in such a digital product passport. And finally, as already mentioned, value protection on both sides, from a brand perspective, protecting the brand, from a customer's perspective, protecting the value that is believed to be in the product. So for that reason, we at Narandero, probably maybe in the early stage of this, what I found the term so interesting, a DPP as a service company could be in future. At least we are totally convinced that digital product passports will happen and will have a need at a lot of companies to figure out how to actually work with them. To give you a little example, we picked one of our example cases. It's a company medium-sized in Italy called Stefano Bema, and it's by their total conviction a sustainability-oriented company driven by the owner and multiple brands to think about how could a sustainable product life look like. And for instance, even they go up to send in your old sneakers and we make them look new, which I found kind of funny. And I want to give you some insights on what's driving these companies to be an early adopter as early as possible to understand the future of digital product passports. And when I happened to meet the owner, I was kind of impressed in June last year because I found the analog product passport attached to his shoes, which I thought is funny. I haven't seen it that way, like really calling it a product passport. And I asked him why is he actually doing that. And so his idea is already for years to be able to explain more about the company's understanding why they are so focused on providing sustainability as well as enabling a consumer dialogue. So taking kind of like a marketing perspective into this sphere beside all the technical views of registering products and giving details on ingredients and all the other things which we have already heard of. And then I thought this kind of example case gives you an idea of a fashion brand that is not like a giant one, but has at least a reach of like 500,000 people on Instagram. And they did introduce an early stage digital product passport this January in Italy. So the owner, Tommaso Verani, has these multiple brands for different fashion products. And the reason why they wanted to be the sustainable company starts with thinking about eco-designed products, as one of them was mentioned, one of the statements is mentioning, keep walking on the same pair of shoes for 20 years, which is probably a really long time, but it kind of represents what is driving them to think about all different stages when they construct these products, how to make them in a timeless design so that they are not like seasonally dropped out, and do whatever they can do to support a circular economy. And the early adoption of digital product passports, and they are like totally eager to understand what is necessary to meet the European standards as soon as they exist, is that they do not only want to do whatever is required as the bare minimum, so to be compliant, they definitely want to go the extra mile to put the customer centricity and so the B2B benefit into their focus. And I think the idea of getting a preview, what this could look like, is the core focus of my contribution today. It is only 33 seconds, and I have to give you a little warning. Since it's a video recording, it starts silently, but at some point it will turn on some background music, and I was unfortunately not able to reduce the volume. So in case at least you are prepared, there will be some sound for 25 seconds that is on a decent, but let's say not really low volume. So what they did in January is, once showing on their Instagram that they have built this into their shoes, and this video went over 28,000 times over Instagram.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space.
So nobody was too shocked about the sound. I stopped at this second because I think what you see is there is no scanning of QR codes. There are no technical barriers. It is, I believe, in a kind of a tipping point to simplicity. Just tap the phone to the product and get immediate access to the product passport. And if that's happening, then somehow corporations will have a good reason, not only for sustainable design, but also for a direct communication to their customers to thrive by changing from what I do have to tell about everything into what I do want to tell, in order to make them every information available that's relevant and that is trustworthy due to the standards that are evolving and developing. So just to give an idea what a company's perspective from doing DPPs or providing DPPs actually looks like, it's a very bare-boned list, but it kind of like changes the perspective of what will a marketing officer in future have to deal with, like, except for all the technical aspects, how do I get my media and data into these passports? How do I aggregate and syndicate content from different sources into these passports? Not only technically, but also from a commercial point of view, providing marketing information or tutorials, supporting information.
Thomas,
Even up to the point that
you have 1 more minute if you can bring your concluding statements. Thank you very much.
Sure. Of course, then I will rush through the slides. I mean, this is what you can, of course, look up in the recording. I guess it's a multiple setup for marketing officers, sustainability officers, and probably some DPP officer at some point. And in the end, my summarization is, I believe the sustainable design will, in the end, kind of like the better the support digitally is, turn products into something that could be called maybe a product as a service to its continuous connection and replacement. Who's interested to know more? Feel happy. I'm happy to get in touch, and I would appreciate if you get in touch or connect. And thank you very much. Sorry for taking too much time.
No, thank you very much, Thomas. That was an extremely interesting presentation. If we don't do that, then we'd love to sort of stay all afternoon. With this, I'm going to, and in fact, you know, remember to the participants, all the presentations will be available to you all, and you have all the contact details for one-on-one getting back to the speakers here. I'm going to pass the floor now to Francesca Poggiali. Francesca, hello. Nice to have you with us from GS1, and I'm going to pass you the floor immediately. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Silvana, and I want to thank StandICT for this great opportunity to participate to the report and for the invitation today. It has been a very exciting journey that we traveled all together. We hope there will be others. So I will share my slides. I know I have just a few minutes, but I wanted to, at first, maybe refresh to some of you who maybe are not really familiar with GS1. I hope participants can see my screen before I click to the next slide.
We can. It's not in presentation mode, but we can see them.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then here you go. So at first about GS1. So GS1 has been enabling product identification in the last 50 years already. So GS1 is a global standardization company driven by industry. So there is a difference between GS1 and other standardization bodies that have been participating today or have been named. We are driven by industry, and our standards are ISO standards for the majority of them. I like these slides, although there are a lot of information, of course, on it, but because in a glance you can see all the identification keys, the data capturing and the data sharing system of GS1. It's just one slide with all the standards that we have been enabling, disclosing, and also maintaining. So I would like to underline maybe a little bit that the identification keys that you see in the first row are for us all very, very important for the digital product passport in the way it has been described so far in the SPR. So we have global open keys to identify locations, to identify entities, to identify products, documents, transports. We can go as far as identifying smart boxes for logistic reasons. We've been active in more than 36 sectors so far in the last years. And some of you may know us in the healthcare sector, where we've been enabling really, dramatic changes all along the supply chain globally, but also in hospitals, in all the drug services. So we think that we have a role to play in the DPP. And because we can enable granular identification at product level, if needed, the Commission will let us know in the delegated acts that will be published very soon if they're looking for serialized identification or batch level identification. Our system can be really very granular and reach the need of companies and regulators. as Ilias said at the beginning, I want to thank him for his opening, because he said something which is very important for us. The DPP is not just about, enabling B2C. The DPP is also about enabling B2B and B2C at the same time. And B2B has been existing since many years. It has been building under different features. And now it's also about how to share this information, or part of it, to the consumers according to the access rights that the Commission is going to fix by legislation, but also how to enable B2G, because we hear from governments every day that they want product data, that they want to check this product data. And we think the DPP is a marvelous opportunity to enable all this, the transition to B2B, to B2C and to B2G, so that we can all be more digitalized and greener, actually. Because also the event data, we keep and maintain one of the most used global standard for traceability, which is called EPCIS. There was a question in the chat regarding EPCIS, and it's the most used standard in the world for traceability today. And of course, it's open to be used. All the GS1 standards are global and open, as I said at the beginning of this presentation. So I would love to speak more about our standard system, but time is really limited. So I want to go back a little bit to the circular business model, where, we all said, and Ilya said it at the beginning, the DPP is a tool to enable supply chains to go from linear to circular, to be more resilient, to be more transparent. And there are also some of the acts that he put on the screen, but also others. For instance, there are the due diligence act that the Commission is working on that will be soon closed. Susanne mentioned the ESG reporting, other acts that are very, very important, that have a global impact. And we think that this can all happen in different ways. But we are happy to say that also global open standards are available to make this happening. Something else that Ilya said at the beginning, which is very important, is that the Commission wants to avoid the fragmentation. The Commission would like to avoid that there are, as Ilya said, I took note, 20,000 different ways of doing the DPPs. So we call it interoperability, but you may call it absence of fragmentation. And also, something that is very important is to pilot, is to start seeing how it works. And the GS1 system has been piloted in different ways. I took only 2 examples for today because I'm cautious about the time, but there are plenty of others. And if there are some of the GS1 member organizations here in this call, I just chosen 2, which are for us the most meaningful in this context at European level, but there are many others. So at first, this is the CIRPAS system, and we are a partner of CIRPAS. Together with 30 founded members, but the CIRPAS network is larger, and CIRPAS is also piloting the standards and piloting the different ways of developing prototypes for digital product passport. And here you see the architecture, that a brief description of the data architecture that CIRPAS is working on for prototyping digital product passport for textiles, for batteries and electric and electronics. This is a project funded by the European Union, and we're very proud of it. We are really enjoying how much we are learning every day into this environment. And as you can see here, it's important that we keep the physical flow and the digitized product flow together. At the center of the digital product passport, we are convinced there should be the passport, the products. The products are fundamental because it's like us for the humans. We go to the airport, we don't just send our passports to the airport. We are there, and the match happens between the product and the passport, like for us the humans, because there are many sophisticated solutions that are already available today, where we are also partnering, but they don't put the product at the center anymore. And this is something that we hope the Commission could clarify, because we think in the way we have interpreted it is that products need to be at the center of the digital product passport legislation. So as I said, our standards are being prototyped under CIRPAS, and we're learning a lot. Here you can see an IT architecture that is going to facilitate also the data exchange. And we are testing a standardized vocabulary. There are standardized data exchange protocols. But also what we think is really important is the unique and persistent ID that the products need to disclose in order to start the journey for the digital product passport. If you do not correctly identify product in a persistent way since the real beginning, all you get in a cascade is a series of errors, is a series of very sophisticated intervention that you need to do in order to go back. So it's better to start from the beginning in the real way by uniquely and persistently identifying products so that they remain at the center of all the data architecture and different solutions that are available today in the market. I said that I had only another slide showing how we are prototyping. So I showed you the SIRPAs. In this slide, you can see also different initiatives on how the DPP could work. I will start from the right. One is the KEEP project, which is funded by the Swedish government, where the electric and electronics products are being tested. It's very mature. It works. I want to give hope to everybody who's listening here. The DPP is a wonderful tool to enable digitalization and go to the next level of circularity. So it can be, also the costs can be kept in a way that companies can benefit out of it. And so there are different types of prototypes that are available. And I see a lot of enthusiasm on many, many important things. I want to underline that the GS1 system had also been piloted with decentralized identification, as was mentioned before in the interventions, and also with verifiable credentials. The system works. We are happy to say this. It's just that it demands an infrastructure that maybe it's not for all. Because here, another thing that we understood it's just maybe from our perspective that the DPP is going to be really enable plenty of products and plenty of sectors to be subject to it. We have heard that the Commission is developing a study thanks to the JRC in order to prioritize the sector that will be included under the digital product passport. And we are speaking about billion of product passport that should be available very soon. That's why we think that this should be a step-by-step approach. Starting with the persistent ID, starting with the product at the center, starting with a carrier that is available under the ISO rules, and with an enabler between the digital product flow and the physical product flow could make it at the beginning for many of the majority of the use cases. Sophistication is also possible, so including, for instance, verifiable credentials to enable more trust working with the product data is possible. It's a wonderful example as well. And so all this needs to be discussed and needs to be prototyped. So I'm very happy to say that we are participating in one of the most exciting moments because, 20 years ago, we didn't have the regulators discussing so much with us on product identification. And now it's really the whole world. It's B2B, B2C, and B2G, as I said at the beginning. So it's really very, very exciting. And that's why we decided recently to relaunch a standardization table. We just opened it this week. It was our launch. And anybody who wants to participate can participate. The GS1 standards are open standards. And one of the definitions under open means that you don't need to be a GS1 member to participate. So you're invited. Everybody's invited, and we will welcome everybody to go and find the little gaps that are today already there and known to many of us, and help us, go over them and go to the next level. So with this, I hand it over to you, Silvana. Thank you so much. I hope I stayed in time. Thank you.
Francesca, thank you so much. So I'd like to thank all speakers. We now have our final speaker, Benjamin Helfrich. A shout out to Elias, who has his second day job of answering all the queries and questions coming into the Q&A. Francesca, I'd like you to go to the Q&A as well, because I think there's a question specifically dedicated for you that you can reply directly. So Benjamin Helfrich, thank you. I know you've worked extremely hard together with Jens, so I'm going to pass you the floor. Immediately, we can see your slides in. They're coming in now, and we can see in presentation mode. Thank you, Benjamin. You're on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Silvana. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud.
Perfect. Thank to all of you, and especially to StandICT and the Three Musketeers that is because we needed at least this action. We need the collection of the several solutions and possibilities of the standards, and we have a lot of standards there, but we also have a lot of origins and motivations where the DPP came from. And that is at least our challenge at the moment in the official standardization organizations, that we have to bring all this together. And like you've seen before, we got some presentation from Francesca and also from Susanne and Thomas. There are several solution possibilities, and we need at least at the end of this interoperable system, and at least the coexistence of this of these solutions. And especially when we want to roll out the DPP very fast, we need to use that what is existent in the market and what is used by the industry. And the digital product passport is a new word, what comes at least in the last few 2-3 years, something like that, with the green transformation and with the Green Deal and also with the ESPR. But at least it is the idea of connecting a product with a data sheet or a data set. And that is not such a new idea or such a complicated thing, but at least if you want to roll out it over every idea of this and every solution in every sector, it will be really complicated. And if you got several motivations and asks and tasks on it, it will be difficult. And we are thinking, or we are engaged in Germany very hard on it. In the last 1 year or 1.5 years, we collected several stakeholders in our cyber breakfast event, for example, and we brought together on our circular economy roadmap several stakeholders to find out what are the main and important ideas and solutions and needs, and that is what we want to bring together now on the standardization playing field on the European level. And there we got the official European standardization organizations, which are dealing in the next time with the standardization request, and we are inviting everybody to work there and to get in contact with the standardization organization in your country, your national standardization body, at least. So the motivation where the DPP comes from is not only from the circular economy perspective, it's also from the digitization effort, at least from the economy itself. And it's also from the battery regulation, we already talked about it, and but also possible about the CE marking, yeah, the conformity declares at least in the new legislative framework, the typical regulation in Europe to define requirements for products, and that is also where the standardization request idea comes from. And you got, like circular economy, you got the R strategies, you got social aspects, but you also got the idea of marketing, usability, maintenance, the quality assurance, like I said before, and so on. What at least the industry and and also the vendors and so on want to put in such a system. And we don't need another system. We need at least an interoperable and a converging system in the future. Because if you now look or watch on a product out of the industry of you will find several data carriers, several identifiers, at least, which are leading to something like digital product passports, to several data sets. And that is what we want to deal with in the standardization and bring this together. And we also have to respect all the interest from the various stakeholders, like the product manufacturers and the integrators, the users, the recyclers, but perhaps also the market surveillance and so on. And so we deal with a very broad variety of origins, interests, and requirements. And that is not the only thing. We also deal with a lot of standards which are already existing, with a lot of solutions which are already existing, and with a lot of committees, with committee standardization committees, which are existing and addressing parts of a DPP system, of an ecosystem. And we want to bring them together in a new JTC on the European level, in a joint technical committee between CEN and CENELEC, to get connected all the committees which are dealing with it. And we already saw it in the presentation of Ilyas, that are the data carriers and unique identifiers, access right management, and so on, the 7 categories. At least we got for all these categories existing committees in the standardization, but we got no committee or no place where we bring all this together. And so we are thinking in the future, and that's are the next steps for us, to bring this, what we collected here in the standardization research in our group. We want to bring this together in something like a meter structure where the coexistence of several solutions is possible, and we're not one player, one solution giver, one service provider, one vendor will make the whole market. And that also isn't possible. It won't be possible because the DPP, at least, is such a critical and big impact for the whole industry, and not only for the provider of the product what comes into the market. It's also the whole supply chain, and that is why we have to think international, and that is why we have to interact also with the international standardization organizations and like ISO and IEC, and we have to bring this idea also on this level. But we got the standardization request from the EU Commission on the European level, and there's where we do the first work on it. At least we said, after we talked in the last year with several stakeholders, like the representatives from in Germany, from Digital Europe, Orgalim, and several industry associations, also from several consumer associations and the trade industry and so on. We brought together this idea with, that we need a holistic concept for the DPP, which takes into account the different requirements and also the different ideas, which allows and use the existing, what we now, at least first or second research, and a very good research, I think, but it's not it's not the end of this research, because we will find more standards and more parts what we are till now not thought about. Yeah, and so we need the use of the existing, and we need a meter structure for it where we get the interoperability of the sector and system specific solutions and the coexistence. And the international connectivity, what I already said, is absolutely needed, because the data, what you need in the DPP at the end, you need at least out of the supply chain. And so we are thinking in the industrial way, in the supply chain way, and we are also working together with all the associations in the manufacturing X and industry 4.0 and so on, and also with the idea of the quality infrastructure. I don't know if you know the quality infrastructure. It is the system what is behind our quality, behind our conformity assessment system, and that is given in all the trade contracts in the world. So we want to transport also this idea through the quality idea, and at least circular economy and the green transition is a part of also a green of the transformation of quality, of the idea of quality. And in a long-term view, we need openness to innovation in the system, in such a metastructure, in such an approach, because like we saw in the presentation of Thomas, there's such much more possible with such a DPP system and DPP idea, what will change a lot in the future. The DPP tomorrow or in 2 years won't be the same DPP like the DPP system and the DPP in 5 years or 10 years. So we need the openness of the system, and that is what we do in the standardization. Also, we are looking every year again on our standards, and we now need the first standard in the next 2 years, a harmonized standard, at least where we all can work under which standard we can work, and we can harmonize the system, and we get something like the interoperability and the convergence at least.
Benjamin, can I ask you to make your concluding remarks now, please?
Yeah, I'm already done, and because this is more or less the concluding page, but I just want to show one thing for the future what we are doing. Another thing is the anticipation of upcoming complementary regulations, what are coming from the EU. It's already discussed that the NLF and like the conformity declarations is also a thing what we need for the DPP, and we need the avoidance of fragmentation on this level. So we are proposing a StandICT JTC DPP from Germany, and what is at the moment in discussion. We are also concrete on the idea of circular economy. What is at the moment the main part of the DPP idea? We are bringing together the associations, AFNOR from Sweden, from France, and from Germany, to get something like a strategic triangle with the ISO-TC circular economy, upcoming SEN-TC circular economy, but and also the STandICT JTC DPP to get this common strategy and good delivered at least in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Silvana. Thank you all.
Thank you, Benjamin.
And I'm happy call your standardization organization in your nation, in your country, and I'm happy looking for all your input. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much. A big round of applause to all of the speakers. You've all been brilliant. I know we've gone over time, but having over 100 people staying on for the entire duration of this webinar shows interest, shows even the active chat in the Q&A as well. And clearly, I've seen that a majority of questions have also been addressed. Anything that hasn't, we'll try and make sure to shoot them off to the corresponding person who can answer that. Maybe, I think I'm going to take the sentence from Elias that he put in the chat also at the beginning, coming from an SME. DPP can make businesses more sustainable business models. Okay, so that's a nice way, I think, to finish today's webinar. We've seen some fantastic contributions, loads of work going on. If we get, even 20% of the people online applying to the first open call on the 9th of May, I think we're going to be extremely happy. So I'd like to thank you, thank the speakers, thank all the participants for here. And as we said, presentations will be up, recording will be up early next week, and on to the next walk and talk. Thank you once again, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.